The second half of 7.4 is upon us, and you knew it was coming. Now we're going to add and subtract rational expressions with different denominators. So last time we figured out how to come up with those same denominators to make them the same, and I've actually left the same problems. If you want to flip back one page in your notes, you should see these exact same problems, because the first step, the first two steps actually, on today's is going to be, first you need to find the LCD, and then you're going to multiply each numerator by the extra factors, and that's what we already did to get our like denominators, our fractions that have like denominators, because the third step is just to add the numerators and keep your least common denominators and then simplify. So what we're doing is we're taking the first couple of sections that we did and the last couple of sections that we did, and we're putting them together, all right? So first we did this part. We added fractions that had like denominators, and then we got like denominators. So now we're kind of flip-flopping it. If we don't have a like denominator, we have to find it. After we find the like denominator, then it's exactly like we did a few sections ago when we just added the numerators with our like denominators. So in this case, I'm going to take the problems we've already done, and then I have a couple of new ones, and we'll start fresh. But let's remember, okay, so after we found the LCD and we found our fractions with like denominators, now we're simply going to add those. So we end up keeping the common denominator, and then add the 3 plus 14 is 17, and we're done. All right, and then the last step is to simplify. You look to see, is there anything in 17 and 24 that will reduce, and it won't, because 17 is prime. So in this case, 12x cubed is our common denominator. And now what we're doing is these red problems, the red fractions, are what we found when we found our common denominators. So this was our original fraction, and we changed those to equivalent fractions with the same denominator. So now we can simply add straight across. So we've got 9x plus 10, and that won't reduce. We're done. All right? Same thing here. The 10 times x minus 3 is our common denominator. And then we just add the 14 and 25. What is 14 and 25? 20, 39. And we're done. And now this is if we're adding these. I guess I didn't say that, did I? I'm adding all of them. What happens if we subtract one? Let's say we're going to subtract this. Okay, let's say we want this fraction subtracting this fraction. So now what we've got is, we've got the red ones. We're going to ignore the black ones because we've changed them into fractions with like denominators. And the like denominator is 6x cubed times x plus 5 quantity squared. That's our like denominator. And now we have 42x cubed minus what? Minus 17 times x plus 5. And let's do it this way, 17 times x plus 5. So we're going to subtract this. And so when we multiply this through to get, so now we've got this multiplied by that, so we do need to simplify this. So you need to multiply your 17 through. So 42x cubed minus 17x. And now be careful with this, because this is a minus times a positive. A negative times a positive is a negative. And oh dear, what is 5 times 17? 50, 60, 70, 85. All over 6x cubed times x plus 5 quantity squared. All right, let's do a couple from scratch now. Let's do a couple more, and let's start and remember how to find that LCD. All right, so we'll just do two more, and we'll put all the steps together. We're going to add one and subtract one, finding our LCD, and then adding or subtracting. All right, so step one we said was to find the LCD. So in this case, we've got 9y cubed and 4xy. So our common denominator, to find our common denominator, we know that 9 is 3 times 3, and y cubed is y. And 4 is 2 times 2. Oh, that's out here. We don't have any, it's not in common with the 3's. and x times y. So I'm going to put an x in between here and a y here. So now when we multiply, we're going to have a 2 times a 2 times a 3 times a 3 times this x times 1, 2, 3 y's. Woo! So our LCD is 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 3 is 12, and 12 times 3 is 36. X, y cubed. So that's our least common denominator. So what we need to do now is we need to come up with fractions that have this denominator that are equal to these fractions. So we're going to take our 2x over 9y cubed, and we want that to be equal to something with a denominator of 36xy cubed. And if you look at your chart, we used 3 times 3 times y. The parts that are extra are 2 2's and an x. So we multiplied by 4x to get this. So I need to multiply by 4x here. Oops, let's just do a dot instead of an x there. That way we won't be confused. So we need to multiply by 4x on the top because we multiplied by 4x here to get our 36xy cubed. So now 2 times 4 is 8, and x times x is x squared. So now I have 8x squared is equivalent to my first fraction. All right? There's a lot of steps here. The second fraction is 3 over 4xy. And we want that equal to something, 36xy cubed. And we need to look to see. So the extra parts are a 3 and a 3 and 2 y's. So we're going to multiply by 9 and 2 y's. So 9y squared. So 3 times 9 is 27. Y squared. So now these are the two fractions that we're going to add. So we have the like denominator of 36xy cubed, and we're going to add 8x squared plus 27y squared. And 8 and 27 don't have anything in common, so we can't pull anything out, so we can't factor anything, so we can't simplify, so we're done. Easy, right? Okay, let's do one more. One more. In this one, your two denominators are two binomials. So you can't split them up unless you can split them up into either two binomials or binomial times a monomial. So this is just m minus 5, so that's as far as it goes. There are no factors to multiply to get this. And m plus 2 is the same way. So in this case, my least common denominator is going to be x minus 5 times x plus 2. The whole thing is my least common denominator. So what you're going to do in this case is, if 4 over m minus 5 is your first fraction, to get the denominator, m minus 5 times m plus 2, the numerator has to be multiplied by the whole m plus 2. So you're going to have 4 times the whole m plus 2. Okay? And your second fraction is 3 over m plus 2. So to get that denominator of m minus 5m plus 2, you already have the m plus 2, so you needed to multiply by m minus 5. So we're going to have the 3 times the extra m minus 5. All right? Woo, we got this? Now, when you do that, when we combine them together, we're going to need to know those different parts. So you can go ahead and multiply that through before you add that in. So we've got 4m plus 8 as your numerator, and your denominator stays the same. And on this case, we've got 3m minus 15 over m minus 5m plus 2. So now we've got our two fractions that now have the same denominator. And my problem says I want to subtract them. So I want this one minus this one. So I want my same denominator, m minus 5 times m plus 2. And I'm going to take 4m plus 8 minus 3m minus 15. The reason, and then we're going to combine like terms and then be done. Hang in there. You're going to make this. So the reason I put this one in parentheses is because when you subtract, you've got to remember you're subtracting that whole thing, not just the m, not just the 3m. You're subtracting the whole thing. So when you subtract the whole thing, your signs change in the whole thing. So you've got 4m plus 8 minus 3m plus 15. Okay, do you see where I got that? Because this is minus 3m and minus a negative makes this plus 15 over the same denominator, m minus 5, m plus 2. Don't lose that. So now combine like terms. 4m minus 3 is m. And then 8 plus 15 is what? 15, 18, 19, 20, 23. So m plus 23 all over m minus 5 times m plus 2. I was thinking it sure would be fun if that would reduce and cancel, and so I was looking to see if I had done something wrong and maybe we could cancel, but we can't. That's just what your answer is. So m plus 23 all over the denominator m minus 5, m plus 2. All right? So really nothing new. Nothing new in this lesson at all. It's putting several lessons together. So you'll need to remember, find your least common denominator. After you have that least common denominator, get your fractions, get both of your fractions to have that same least common denominator. And then once they have the same denominator, then you just add or subtract. Easy as pie. All right, that's all for today. See you next time.